We've all heard the saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But why do the rich get richer? Is it just the mindset that it takes money to make money, or do they know something else we don't? Lots of financial planners talk about mutual funds, annuities, IRAs, and 401ks, but do the rich do the same thing, or is there more? To answer that question, I talked with Ben Mohr about how everyone can invest like the ultra wealthy.
My guest today is Ben Mohr, a trusted leader in retirement and income planning with a strong focus on alternative investments and life settlements. As founder and CEO of Ben Mohr LLC, he leads one of the top firms specializing in life settlement solutions, offering expert guidance for navigating complex financial decisions. Ben works closely with clients who uncover hidden value in their financial portfolios, often helping them turn unwanted or unneeded life insurance policies into powerful retirement assets. Ben also plays a key role as part of the RMO insurance and retirement team, where he continues to help clients secure financial stability through personalized strategies and in depth knowledge of life settlements. Ben's goal is to help individuals approaching retirement make confident, well informed decisions without confusion or pressure. His clear, practical guidance and proven results have made him a trusted resource for those seeking security and peace of mind in retirement. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you so much, Steve, for having me.
So we're going to have a great discussion here. As the episode title is Investing Like the Ultra Wealthy. So we're going to talk about what wealthy investors do to see if the average investor can learn a thing or two from that.
Right.
Now, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about a recession, and this can scare people, but it actually offers a lot of opportunities. Let's start off with that. What do wealthy investors do differently when the market is down so that the folks out there know what they need to know should that happen, should there be a recession?
Sure. Well, let's look at it this way. What is the average person out there usually presented with? Usually they have a financial advisor, or if you have a retirement account like a 401k, where is that money? Almost all that money with almost every financial advisor you talk to, Schwab, Fidelity, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a 401k, it's going to have a custodian. And again, where's that money going to be? It's going to be in the market. Almost
Mm-hmm.
100% of that money is going to be in the market. Most people with the retirement accounts and such like that, it's all market based. And they usually get the song and dance from somebody in that world that they're going to diversify their portfolio by spreading that money out over different parts of the stock market. Maybe it's you have some bonds, maybe stocks, maybe mutual funds, ETFs, what have you, right? You just watch the Jim Cramer show or anything like that, and there's just a multitude of ways to market and to invest in the market. Okay. So that's what the average person is presented. That they honestly think the only solution they have is to just move their money around the market. And that is not what ultra wealthy people do. Sure, ultra wealthy people have some of their money in the market. They may even have a majority of the money in their market. But what they also do is they usually own assets. They own certain types of assets that try to not follow the lead of what the economy does and what the market does. And that's where if everyone ever asks, well, what do you mean by that you're an alternative, you work in the alternative space? Exactly that. It's the alternative space means that we help people find places to make money outside of the market, things that are not affected by the economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people go, well, that sounds like real estate. Real estate could be considered an alternative, but it is also an area that most people are also familiar with. Sure, a lot of ultra wealthy people own, real estate as well. I'm not against real estate, but we are in a different niche, as you mentioned, life settlements, and that is a place where Warren Buffett has been for about 3 to 4 decades. I'm sure most of your listeners and viewers know who Warren Buffett is. And what you got to look at is why is Warren Buffett putting money in something such as a life settlement? And why are the funny thing is a lot of large banks that usually promote stock market based products, why are they putting their money in something outside the market? That's where you get the attention of your average person. It's just not a message that's been delivered to the average person. And if they ask, well, why is that? It's because of marketing, right? We are a niche business. There's a select few of us that do this. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's not anything compared to the market. Every 5 seconds you're seeing a commercial on air for the Fidelities. And, these companies have marketing budgets that are into the multi millions. We're more of a word of mouth business, and it's kind of kept under wraps by the wealthy, if you will, because of the nature of how you make money, right? It's not up front, it sounds a little ghoulish, but it makes sense.
So, as I said, usually that a downturn in the market, such as a recession,
Right.
offers a lot of opportunities in the market because people don't realize. They'll say, "Oh, I lost a lot of money in the market.
Sure.
It went way down." It's like, no, you didn't. You don't
Yeah,
lose it till you sell it.
correct.
And so, a lot of times, people say they'll be fearful of the market, and they'll say, "Well, I'm going to hold off until the market recovers."
Sure.
And that's you think that's the solution, but it's
No,
really the other way around. If you
absolutely.
wait, all you do is get the money back that you had
Right.
a few months before.
Sure.
If prices are a lot lower, that's when you
Sure.
invest because when the market goes back up, you're getting huge gains in those investments during the dip that'll put you way ahead of what you were before the dip.
100%. Yeah.
And that's what again, as you say, the traditional advisors and
Right.
the advice people give, and it's very true, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But as I understand what you're saying, is that you go outside to alternatives that are outside the market, outside those risks,
Right.
so that you can make money and get a significant rate of return without the risks of the market. And that's what ultra rich people do. Right.
Yes, correct. Because the issue is, of course, like, for me to sit here and say, I think a lot of people, when they find someone like me who's, quote, selling or pitching an idea, is that I want them to completely change everything they're doing. I would say our average client that we deal with still has 70, 80% of the money in the market. Right. Because of exactly what you're saying. I mean, it's going to be where over time you're going to make the most of your money, no doubt. But it's also going to be a place where you have risks. The reason that we present this to people is that if you have money in the market, you really don't, and you're having an advisor, let's say, oversee your money,
Mhm.
you have to realize that at some point you really don't have any control over how that money makes money, right? The economy can shift on a dime. Political tensions can happen, foreign wars, all these things make the market go up and down, up and down. So you can't sit there easily as you're heading into retirement and go, hey, I've got $1 million in this IRA. Let's plan for the future. You can plan for the future, but you're not planning for those dips that take place that are beyond your personal control. You had nothing to do with it, right?
Mhm.
What we show people is that we have them take a slice of their money outside of it, and it makes money in a different way, where the risks that you're used to, these ups and downs, whether it's politics, whether it's changes in laws, whether it's the economy, a coronavirus, if you will, no
Mhm.
one sees these things coming, but they always do, right? Change is the one thing we know that is constant, right?
Right.
And right, good and bad.
Right.
And so the issue is, if you know that and you know going in that that's going to affect your bottom line, good or bad, why wouldn't you take a slice of your money off that table where you don't have to worry about that anymore? And sure, there are different types of risks that you deal with us, but they have nothing to do with the economy. Like when people buy with us, they're not going, the whole tariff issue that happened, say 6 months ago. As soon as that, whatever side of the spectrum you're on politically, and I'm not on either side, is that scared the market and the market dropped for a bit. Then it kind of came up because blah blah blah. Well, imagine that you don't have to deal with that with our money. It doesn't matter what Trump is saying or what the Democrats are doing, or if we're going to get peace in Ukraine or the Middle East. There's always something, right? And that's
Mhm.
always going to affect the market. Why not take a slice of your money away from that and know that you're going to get money in a different way?
Mhm. Absolutely. So let's talk about this. So what
Sure.
are you said when you talk about alternatives, people usually say, "Oh, real estate investment." Well, it's
Yeah.
that and it's other things. What are the
Right.
other things? What are these alternatives you're talking about that the ultra wealthy use that our listeners should look into?
Sure. Well, the one area that we stick in, but I will mention some of the others that I don't deal in. But the typical alternatives that people would think if they're listening on your show or watching your show is they okay, first real estate, probably what you're talking about, precious metals. Everyone hears about gold, things of that nature, and they also hear about oil and gas. Those are kind of the most familiar alternatives that people are know about, or crypto, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not going to go there, but that is an alternative, right?
right.
So where we're at is what we call life settlements, which we mentioned. So a life settlement, and that's where we do all of our business. Life settlements is where somebody sells off their life insurance policy, a permanent life insurance policy in their older age to an investor. Now,
Mhm.
I want to say this as a disclaimer. We are not here. We are not looking to buy policies. We are not buyers. We are sellers. So what we do is we go out and we find people who no longer want their policy. So I give the old John Smith speech. John Smith is 80 years old. He's got $1 million policy. His premiums on that policy are $30,000 a year. So
Mhm.
why does John need $1 million policy at 80? He's had it since he was 50. He bought it a long time ago to protect his family in case he gets hit by a bus, walk across the street, mortgage is paid, kids' colleges are paid, all of it is good. Well, now he's 80. What does he need, Steve? He needs end of life care. So
Mhm.
where is he going to draw the money for end of life care? Say he doesn't have a long-term care policy. A lot of people don't. Well, he's not going to go reverse mortgage the house. He's not going to hit his IRAs because he's going to pay tax on that money. For every dollar he pulls out to take care of himself, he's going to have to pay a dollar in taxes. Well,
Right.
guess what? He's 80 and he's sitting looking at this $1 million policy going, why do I have this? The kids are all good. They're in their 50s. They got their own lives now. Sure, if they get the $1 million, it's a nice little bonus, but they're not depending on it. And I'm paying through the nose for this thing.
Right.
Instead, he could dump that off on us. We'll buy it from him for say $300,000.
Mhm.
Okay, so now our company owns it. Now, that what we do is we now have it out there where investors can buy it from us, right? And that's what Warren Buffett does. Warren Buffett owns, he has a company that owns over $1 billion of life settlements on people all over America,
Mhm.
right? And so when the market goes down in a year, we have that cycle every 7 years or so. And it's like, oh my God, the market went down 7, 8 points or whatever it was. And everyone's saying it was not a good year, recession, whatever it is. He hedges the market because he has life insurance policies on a ton of people. And when they pass, he gets the profit.
Mhm.
And there has been a study done by the London School of Business a few years back that showed when ultra wealthy did this, they were easily making double-digit returns. Stock market like returns in good years he's getting from an alternative investment that has no correlation to anything that the market does. And that's what we do. We just buy policies, package them together, and make sure they're legally done correctly, that there's not going to be any kind of legal issues, and then you can buy those policies from us.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. I had a guest on the show a while back that was talking about it from the 80-year-old's
Yeah.
perspective,
Yes.
where you're saying, "Hey, you've got this policy; it's worth a lot of money. If you don't care whether your
Yes.
kids inherit anything, as you say, then
Right.
then you can just sell it, get the money now to
Yep.
live on." But
Correct.
what you're talking about, you're from the other end of things, where you're saying, "Hey, I'm gonna invest $300,000
Yeah.
in $1 million policy,
Right.
and then when that person dies, then I'll get $1 million, which is quite a nice rate of return."
Yes. Right.
So that's something I hadn't thought of, but that's very interesting. Just that there's a market for this
Yes.
uh, in people buying these policies.
Yeah, and you can understand why the ultra wealthy or these large financial institutions don't go. I always joke, say, you're never going to see them go on the Jim Cramer show. And he's like, aren't you guys worried? And they're like, well, actually, we had kind of a good year over here because X amount of people passed away. They're never going to say that because the average investor just kind of goes, my God, that's very ghoulish. But
Right.
Steve, that's life insurance, right? I mean, that's life insurance. That's why it's there. It's, the funny adage I've had is I've had like husbands and wives, and I'm not being a misogynist here, but usually the wife will sit there and go, "Oh my God, I don't know if I can do this because I'll be buying people's life insurance, and when they pass away, they die." And I always look at them and go, "Do you have life insurance on your husband?" And they go, "Yes, of course." And I go, "So I'm not understanding here. You're absolutely okay on profiting off the death of your husband or loved one, but somebody who needs the money and doesn't want the policy anymore, you have some moral dilemma about." getting paid on it. These people want. There was a study done also by Wharton School of Business that showed that if these people can't sell their policies to the investors out there, then their only choice is to go back to the insurance carrier and take what they'll give them, and it's
Right.
pennies on the dollar. They'll get four times. The guy that you talked to probably explained this. They'll get four times on average the amount on the open market selling to somebody like me, right?
Right.
Than they would if they go back to their New York Life or Transamerica or John Hancock. So this is a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah, but a lot of people think about, and if I recall correctly, that's what this other guest had indicated. People think about selling their policies. They think of giving it back
Yep,
and giving back. Well, you get the cash surrender value.
correct.
Well, all that really is your money that you're getting back
Correct.
because you
Yeah.
paid in a higher. What people don't realize is you pay a higher premium
Yep.
for a whole life policy than term, and that
Correct.
extra money just gets set aside
Right.
to help pay the premiums.
Right.
So you get that extra money back that you've been paying in, and there's not a very good rate of return on that. So I guess say, well, yes, if I buy this policy, then that person dies, their family don't get the $1 million,
Yep.
but that person, while he was living, got a heck of a lot more for his policy than his
Right.
cash surrender value that gave him a better life while he was alive.
Right.
So you're helping the person while they're alive rather than helping the family after they're gone, per se.
Right. And the
So,
other part of that
oh,
equation that they don't factor in is they go, well, we don't want to sell the policy to you guys for $300,000 because it's
mm,
$1 million. And I go, okay, but you're forgetting how long is dad going to live? Oh, we think another 4 or 5 years. Well, you have the premiums, right? You add in the premiums that you got to pay every year. You might actually, your cost might be $500,000 over the total time.
mm,
Right. So it's not like they're, giving away 700 grand because they're just acting like he's going to pass away tomorrow and likely. And by the way, we do what's called life expectancy reports, and those are
right,
readily available to our clients. People go, well, how do you know? We go to doctors who are experts in this. And by the way, on our website, you can look up the entire medical reports and everything. It's just like getting an appraisal on a house, or if you went, I know I work in this business, so it just sounds a little cold, but you're not buying a car unless you take it and get a Carfax and have a mechanic look under the hood, right?
right,
We're not going to buy, we're not shelling out 300 grand to get $1 million policy because a guy tells me he's got COPD and is a diabetic and we're just going to take his word for it. No, we send them through a litany of reports and diagnoses to see, family history, medical history. We know how mom died, dad died, everybody in the family, what's the issues, because genetics, I don't care. You can't out diet and outrun genetics. Genetics are genetics, right?
right.
And then we look at everything else. So it's not something that we're just willy-nilly doing. It's we are experts in this field and put together the best policies we can. And so far, so good. I mean, this year alone, I can just tell you off the top of my head, we've had three major payouts to people where I think the low end was at the end of the day, what was their APR? It was 10 and a half on the low end. The second person made 12.5%. And on the last one, it was a $3 million payout at over 20% APR.
Wow.
So, I mean, phenomenal return. We've had really good returns, and we list that also. We can show people what that is. So, sure, what is the risk here, Steve? Is people always say it's longevity, right? Longevity
Mm,
is if we think that someone's going to die in 4 years and they die in 8, did you lose money? You didn't lose money, just your return was lower. But I've got policies right now. I've got a policy on a gentleman that's 84 years old. He's expected to live about 4 years. And we're talking 88, which, by the way, for your listeners at home, would be about 7 to 8 years longer than people are on average die in this country.
mm,
That's getting up there. If he passes by 88, I believe the returns on this thing are going to be close to 20%
mm,
APR. If he dies at 92, you might be in the 9 to 10 range. Well, I mean, that's what the S&P does. So even if we're wrong by a few years, you're still making pretty good returns. To lose money in this deal, this guy would have to live probably to 100, and
mm.
that's just not very likely. This guy most likely is not going to live, another 16 years. We've never seen that, and I've been in this industry a long time. I've never seen due to somebody's longevity where people have lost money in that case, you
Mhm.
know.
Well, I think a lot of people, a lot of our listeners know what an actuary is.
Yeah,
And that essentially is what, life insurance carriers do this all the time.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
how much, how soon is it going to be that we're going to have to pay out? How long are you going to live? And
Yes.
anybody in retirement who has a required minimum distribution, how do you
Yes.
think the IRS comes up with that? They
Yes.
know that
Yeah.
they want their money before you
You
die.
die. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So they
Yes.
have a good idea of how much longer, statistically speaking, you're going to live, and they judge and based on the economy and a whole bunch of factors,
Sure.
determine what your required minimum distribution is. So, listeners out there, if you think about it, this has been a science that's been around for decades, even if over 100 years,
Right.
where that's what life insurance companies do. They're experts in knowing how much longer you're going to live on average. And I'm
Right.
sure that you bring that same science to bear
Yeah.
when you look at these policies for sale and how much
Right.
it's worth from a sales standpoint.
Yeah, we actually take it another step, right? So to start where you were talking about, yes, I agree with you that if the federal government does their homework and insurance carriers do their homework to decide how long the average person in your area lives, you can pretty much lock that number up, right? So,
Right.
matter of fact, if anybody who's listening right now, I know if you search on Google, you can go into the Social Security website and they actually have a life expectancy calculator on there. Right. Now, what you can do is you can put in your birthday. That's all they know. So this is very rudimentary, Steve, right? Because all
Right.
they're doing is just basing on your age and your birthday. That is not enough information even for an actuarial to come up with, right? That's
Right.
just going to tell you very bland. It doesn't know race. It doesn't know anything about your history, period, right? I mean,
Mhm.
racial factors definitely tie in, no doubt. You are know this as well. What we call it the BMI, body mass index, which tells you how out of shape you are, so to speak, based on your
Mhm.
height and weight. Those are very rudimentary ways, and that's what an actuarial is going to use. So yeah, actuarials are used by life insurance companies, okay? But you have to look at an actuarial. I'm 52 years old, okay? So I'm a white guy in California, 52. They'll use an actuarial for that, right? Because everybody in my segment supposedly should live on average another 30 years, right? So they're not going to do a deep dive there. They're just going to say, hey, by the way, this is your whole group. X amount of you should be still alive at 80. X amount of you should still be alive at 90. Okay.
Right.
What we do though is because we're dealing with people who are already in that segment, 75, 85, 80 to 80, 85 years old. We go beyond that because an actuarial really just gives you bland information. But we know this, Steve, that people at 80 are going to have a lot more health problems listed than I do. So,
Right.
what we actually do with these life expectancy reports is there's this thing on there called a mortality multiplier. So, yes, they take the two most accurate actuarials out there. I think one's called the Breckenridge, the other one's called the Max Planck. These are the ones that are tried and true. So they take those two just to start. That's you and your pool.
Right.
Now, what they want to do is I kind of talk about it's like molding the clay. They're now going to look at your family health history. They're going to look at your personal health history, your social history. Are you married? Did your wife die? Blah, 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 blah. All of those things. With that, they're looking at that specific individual and determining what they call a mortality multiplier. Now, a
Mhm.
more mortality multiplier of 0 would mean that you are the most average vanilla guy in your group. You would be expected to pass away the way that the actuarials say. If you're Jack LaLanne, if people in our listeners are listening and you drink wheatgrass shakes and run marathons at 82, you're going to have a negative multiplier, meaning that it's less likely that you would die at that age. We only buy policies where people have a multiplier that's above. So you'll see a lot of our policies. And if any of your listeners want to check one of these out, I'd be more happy to walk through. In the upper left hand corner, it will have their multiplier, and you're going to see threes, fours, sixes. That means that they are much more likely to die earlier than the average, I know, than the average person. And then what we do is we show the Social Security webpage and say, hey, the average guy in this group is expected to live 6 years, but because of the mortality multiplier, this guy's expected to live 3, right? So yes, it is actuarials, but then we take a much deeper dive. The way I would say an actuarial would be, because people understand real estate is, hey, I live in San Diego. How much is your average three bedroom, two bath house? Boom, right? Zillow. Okay, it's $1 million. Well, yeah, but what about a house in La Jolla, da 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 da, that has this type of backyard and dee all this stuff? And well, actually, the appraisal on this house isn't 1 million; it's actually 1.2, right? So that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, it's the difference between a comparative market analysis and
Right.
appraisal.
Absolutely.
And in my bankruptcy practice, I was just talking about someone to someone earlier today about that and the
Yeah.
difference between the two. I think we're both kind of showing our age. Uh, I don't know how many listeners out there know who Jack LaLanne was. I do, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but maybe Richard Simmons or some of these other
Sure.
exercise folks that are out there that
Right.
have a great cardiovascular system and are in great shape.
Right.
So yeah, that's and I think that goes to the next question I was going to ask as far as um, risk factors that you have the they're obviously if you compare them to stocks or
Right.
annuities
Right.
where you have a certain volatility in the market
Hmm.
and that volatility of course can be determined by you know well, risk factors on when you need the money.
Right.
If you don't need the money for 30 years, then you don't need to worry as much about a
Right.
drop. But if we go into a recession right before you're ready to retire, then that's a whole other thing.
Right.
So, they're obviously so the safety factor is there and understandable because you're dealing with, you know, death and taxes, right?
Correct.
The
Yeah.
certainties in this life that and it is ghoulish and it can be uncomfortable to think about.
Right.
But both sides get something out of the deal, like we said.
Yep.
They get the money they need now while they're alive. You get a nice return on an investment. And with the analysis, if you do the research and you're smart about it,
Hmm.
that person's going to die.
Correct.
But no matter whether we're in a bull market or a bear market, that
Correct.
person is going to die, statistically speaking, within a certain period of time, resulting in a certain return on investment. So uh, that goes to as far as risk and safety. But the next question is sort of alluding to, which is listeners that are nearing retirement and will need the money soon, and whether they're safer, these investments are safer for them to use because it's a matter of access to the money.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
how does that help hedge someone's bets as they're entering retirement and looking at a potential recession?
Sure. So the thing there, and it's a great question, is this, is that we obviously, and I'm very, I know annuities very well. I was in that space a long time before I got into this. So, most annuities that people are setting up are going to be income producing, right? That's the whole point of it. They're not using it as a retirement vehicle to make money. Anybody who out there, and a lot, this, that there's a lot of insurance guys out there that are kind of shady, because I knew a lot of them that make it out like you make the stock market like gains, but not the losses. That's a bunch of hooey, right? It's the issue is you buy that for an income producing asset. You might have stuff in your retirement that you're using as an income producing asset. We are not an income producing asset, right?
Mm.
100%. There is liquidity. You bought the policy and now you must wait. So we want to make sure that you're suitable for buying this policy, right?
Right.
So we're not, if I was sitting in front of somebody that had $500,000 to their name and they want to do $200,000 in a policy, we would say no, right? The average person who works with us, Steve, has maybe 10% of their overall net worth with us, right? So
Mm.
our kind of angle is, well, what happened to the other 90% of what you had, right? If they go, I'm broke, I don't have the money. So that's the key here is it has to be the right kind of investor that says, look, what I'm looking for is just diversification. I'm not looking for this to be income producing. The way I always explain it to this is we kind of call it the, 70, 20, 10 rule in our angle.
Mm.
As somebody gets to be over 60, 65, and they want to invest with us, Probably 70% of their money is going to be in the market. 20% is probably going to be in some form of an annuity that's going to be income producing down the line when they're retired. And then the other 10% was where we're at. And so the way I talk about it here is when I do speeches, when I do dinners or whatever, I honestly say this is a very easy conversation because I just look at them and I'd say to you, Steve, is like, I'm not planning your life here, right? The rest of it, that's what you have. I only want to talk about the worst performing 10% of your assets. What are they? Right? Before
Right.
anyone sits down with me, I go, that is the first question I'm going to ask. If you can't answer that question, we probably shouldn't talk because
Right.
that's where I'm looking. Where is your sore spot? Right. So if somebody comes to me and they're like, well, this part of my stock market stuff isn't doing so well, or I have a lot of people come to me and go, I've got a really bad annuity that I want to get out of. Hey, we can help you. Or, I just got extra money sitting in a CD and the rates aren't doing that great. And I'm willing to take a little more risk. They're not the risk that's in stock market, but I'm willing to deal with the longevity risk that we
Right.
talk about, then they fit. 70% of our clients are using IRAs for this, by the way. So, because, and that what's where that's good, Steve, is if I meet somebody who's say 60 years old and I ask them, how long do you plan to work? And in today's environment, you already know this, most people are planning way beyond 65. So, they like their job. The people are working from home these days. A lot of people are like, I'm not going to give up the job. I think I might work till I'm 70 or even longer. Well,
Mhm.
that gives me that 10-year horizon where they're never asking for this money, right? The last money they're ever going to ask for is money in their IRA because they're going to have to pay taxes on it.
Right.
Another angle that's great is I help a lot of people do Roth conversions into this. This is a perfect product for Roth conversion. A
Mhm.
lot of people are not familiar. Obviously, talking to you, I know you're very familiar, but they always get contribution and conversion mixed up. They go, oh, I can't do one. I don't qualify. I'm like, you absolutely qualify for conversion. So we will sit down with people, find out what their threshold is before they go to the next tax bracket. Maybe that's 20, maybe 30, $50,000. Why are you not accessing that money? Right? I never understand that. If somebody goes, well, I made X amount this year, I'm like, but you have a $40,000 buffer before you get to the next tax break. You should be doing Roth conversions for that money. Pay it at the tax level now. And imagine they put that Roth money into this, right? I got this case, as I told you, where you could buy this guy who's 84, you could buy his policy right now for $60,000. It's a $150,000 return. Imagine somebody doing a Roth conversion on that, taking their 60,000, converting it, and when that guy dies, most likely in 4 years, your 60 just became $150,000 tax free,
Mhm.
right? You don't need to reinvest that with us. You could go put that in some type of annuity if you wanted to after, and then know that you're going to draw on that annuity tax free for the rest of your life, you know?
Now that raises a good question, the tax issue of this.
Yes, yes.
So you buy $1 million policy for 300,000, the person
Yeah,
dies, and you get $1 million policy.
yeah.
Is that tax free income?
No, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. And I always
I
joke,
didn't
Steve.
think
No, no,
so, but
no,
I
no.
think
I know you didn't think so. And if
folks,
you did,
folks have, the listeners have to know. Well, wait a
and if
minute, you
you
got
did, you were
taxes
gonna
there.
pull out your. If you did, you're gonna pull out your checkbook right now. No, I always joke with that. People ask that, and it's a great question. Like when I'm doing a dinner, they're like, they ask that question. They kind of lean in, like, please tell me. I said, this lady, ma'am, I'd be sitting on my couch eating Cheetos in my sweats with people lined up the door asking for it. No. So the tax is for your listeners who aren't familiar that if you buy a life insurance policy, one of the great provisions of it is in a general sense, if I buy a policy on myself and I pass away, that money's tax free, right? That's a provision. Okay. Once you sell it on the open market, that provision it goes away, right? It
Right.
now becomes an asset. Okay. So what happens there is no, you are taxed on the gain and most of it is taxed at a capital gain. It gets a little hinky on this, but most of it is a capital gain. Okay. So that's the way. Like when our clients got paid out recently, they get a K1 and then they just pay their capital gains tax. So yes, the only way you can make it tax free is if you do it with the Roth. Now, here's the thing, Steve. If they use a regular traditional IRA, it's tax deferred, right? So if somebody bought one, as we mentioned, the 60 becomes 150. If somebody came to me tomorrow and used a traditional IRA to buy it, their IRA owns it at 60,000. When it gets paid out, that 150 is going to be in their IRA. There's no tax consequence at the time, just like any other IRA. It will be taxable later on in life when you
Right.
decide to disperse funds.
Right.
Mhm.
At regular income tax rates.
Yes, well, yeah,
as
and
opposed to
and
capital
and to
gains
be
rates.
yeah, and to be fair to us on that, that's not our problem, right? That's not a life settlement issue. That's an IRA problem, right?
Right.
Wherever you have your money, it's going to be just so the people are home familiar. That's not a, oh my God, I'm not going to put my IRA in life settlements because you're going to pay, eventually you're going to pay at an income level. Wherever your IRA is right now is a tax time bomb waiting to happen where
Mhm.
you're going to have to, it's funny. I sat with a guy the other day, Steve, who was like, well, I got $1 million in my IRA. I'm like, well, you really don't have $1 million in your IRA. He goes, what do you mean? I go, at best, you probably have about 600 to $700,000 in your IRA. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, that or 300
Taxes.
grand's the government's. I mean, at some point they're going to get it, that
Right.
that is the biggest, and I know the government's probably listening to this. The biggest con job ever on earth, right, is the government giving you this tax deferral, which is great, right? But if as soon as you're, they want you to do so well with your money, right? Because
Mhm.
you're making them money. You're making them money, right? The biggest BS factor is this, and I'm sure you know this, is if you lose your butt in the market with your stuff, they don't give you a full write-off, right?
Mhm.
They give you nickels on that. If you had cash and you lost your shirt, you get the full write-off. In your IRA, you don't get the full write-off,
Mhm.
right? So it's unbelievable that the IRS is sitting next to you, slapping you on the back while you're at this blackjack table called the stock market, if you will, going, "Wow, you're on a heater." Of course, they love it because they're getting free drinks and 30% of whatever you're making on this thing. But the moment you lose your butt, they're not at the table anymore. You're on your own, right?
Mhm.
It's unbelievable. That's why I love the Roth conversion in this, that if we can get some of your money out of a regular tax situation, get it tax free. By the way, this is also going to reduce your RMDs, Steve, right? Because if I can get people to do 50,000 a year for 5 years and buy different policies, we've now reduced the RMDs because the amount of money that's in a regular IRA is no longer the same, and you've diversified away from the market, and we're creating a tax free money down the road for you in retirement. It's it's
Now,
it's a great plan for Roth.
now, how does that work? In other words, how does the that policy get into a Roth IRA? You're
Yeah.
when you buy it, does it work kind of like a trust where the
Yeah.
IRA is buying the policy and
Yes.
you're taking money? So it all works within that IRA retirement investment bubble where money from the IRA is being used to purchase the life insurance policy, and then that IRA gets paid the money when the person dies.
Yes, 100%. So what people don't realize is that when you talk in alternative investments, whether you want to buy a house, whether you want to give us a call, buy gold, whatever it is, the standard way that everyone understands IRAs, 401ks, 403bs of that nature is the custodian has been set up within your company that you work for, or you just decide you're going to go do an IRA rollover, right? So you worked at ABC company, you no longer work there, and you have this $100,000 that you built up in a 401k, and you go, okay, I'm going to call Fidelity or Schwab and I'm going to do an IRA rollover. Well, money goes from your 401k account into that IRA, and guess what? You're now in the market. Totally fine. When you come to us, you can't go to Schwab, you can't go to your current company because they only deal with the market. They don't deal with alternatives. So what you have to do is get what's called a company out there called a self-directed IRA company. And these companies are around, and we deal with a company called IRA Club. I've worked with a ton of them. These guys are stellar. And that allows you, what they do, as you said, they'll set up your, Steve Richardson IRA 12345. And
Mhm.
then when you come in and you invest, it's actually your IRA invests, right? So when you on the paperwork, it will say IRA Club FBO for the benefit of Steve Richardson 12345, your account number. Your IRA actually owns it, or your Roth. Now, when it comes to a Roth, it's very simple. What we would do is, let's say I was sitting down with somebody and they had go, okay, I want to do a Roth conversion of $50,000, and they have, say, a Fidelity account. We're going to transfer money from the Fidelity account to IRA Club, IRA to IRA, right? So it comes across, no tax consequence. These happen as Steve and I are speaking here. 1,000 of them have happened in the world. This happens all day, every day.
Right.
It's just a direct transfer. There's no tax
So it's
consequence.
like rolling over a 401k into
Absolutely.
an
So
IRA.
now, yeah. So now the 50,000's over at IRA Club. It's an IRA. And then all we're going to do is while it's there, we're going to set up a Roth IRA account. and then the money is just going to internally go from the IRA because it was just a landing spot
Mhm.
into your Roth. And then what happens at the end of the year? Yes, you get a 1099 from IRA Club for that $50,000. It will be income. That's the part people hate. But what I try to explain to people is that if you have a higher tax bracket, if you have money within your wiggle room in the tax bracket, you're not going to pay any additional tax percentage wise on that money. And the IRS was going to get it anyway. Do it now. Another way we can do for those people who don't like to pay taxes is we can internally keep some of the money aside in the Roth account,
Mhm.
right? Say a third, and take the other two-thirds, invest it with us. And then when it comes time to pay your bill for the taxes, you can send the money from that Roth account straight to the IRS,
Mhm.
right? So you're giving them their money, but you're not having to write the check. I like
Right.
writing the check style if you can afford it because you're going to get more bang for your buck,
Right.
right?
Exactly. So, uh, so we talked about these life settlements. So we have already talked about life settlements. That was my next question.
Yeah, that's pretty much where
So,
we sit, but there are other alternatives out there, right?
mhm. Are there any others you want to that are
No, I mean, people
particularly
just
strong?
know. I mean, what's great is, by the way, if you go to an IRA club and you set up an account with them and we'll do all the work, you can also use that account. Let's say somebody comes in with us and decides to invest with us. Once you're an IRA club, they're going to send you stuff on all the other ideas out there because people are always on there. There's real estate investment syndicates. You can use the same account with us to invest in a multitude of other things, right?
Mhm.
You'll open up yourself to other things. Obviously, we'd love people to just invest with us, but we also respect people's ideas. So we have plenty of clients who come in with us and then have also used that account to invest in other things that we're not associated with.
Okay. So let's talk about listeners out there listening to this, and they feel, uh, I've got this basic retirement plan. I got some money in the market. I've got some index funds,
Right.
and and they feel kind of stuck in that mold. What's one smart move that they can make that'll improve their results?
Inside the market, if they stay inside the market.
Oh, any smart move, whether it's
Well,
inside or
well,
outside the market, what's something that they can do now that there'll be a nice
Well, I think I
bump?
think the first thing that anyone needs to do, period, before they even make a move is I find literally no joke, 80 to 90% of the people I meet with, and we're talking high net worth people. I just did a dinner with a bunch of people where the average person I met at this thing, and we just did it at a basic little mom and pop restaurant. I don't do things at the high end, because
Right.
I want the rich people to come there because I know that if I give them decent food, but it's just kind of, nothing, it's a cafe. I know they're there to hear what I'm talking about, not just going, oh, we're gonna go on a Thursday night to Ruth Chris. Well, then, who knows? But the and I'm not gonna say what we call them in the industry, but those types. But the issue is, I'm good with them going there, but I'm just stunned. These people have done really well for themselves. They own their house and all this stuff. But when I'm sitting there trying to figure out where the worst 10% of their assets are, they don't even know. They don't even know. I
Mhm.
mean, the first thing anyone can do is before you even know that you're not happy with what you have is get yourself educated on what you have, what your mutual funds are. People go, well, I have mutual funds. Well, which mutual funds? I don't know. Okay, well, what kind of mutual funds? Have you gone online and have you actually, I mean, with the information we have today, Steve, somebody within an hour could go through and look up how good their mutual funds are, right?
Mhm.
Who the manager is, how much they're paying for it, all these things. I mean, that's what's hilarious is, I mean, these people are obviously very intelligent people living in very wealthy areas that
Mhm.
have navigated life to 60 and put their clothes on every day and have been able to raise children, but they
Right.
can't spend an hour of their time to look at the basic information on what literally is their gold pot of gold for retirement. And I'm more than happy to do that with anybody too, show them how to do it, right? The other thing is if they have annuities, a lot of people don't even know what they have. They don't understand, like, right? Because the sales guy just sold the heck out of it, right?
Mhm.
And then I sit down with people and go, that's absolutely not how this annuity works, right? And so we always offer with our company free annuity reviews. Obviously, if someone's not happy with the annuity, we're going to show them how we can get them out and invest with us. But that's maybe 2 out of 10 people. The other eight, at least I say to them, I'll give you education on how this really works. Right. And they'll be like, well, that's not what the guy told me. I'm like, yeah, because he got paid a commission up front and
Oh
showed you
yeah.
all the great bells and whistles, but he didn't talk to you about recapture rates on, right? Like an FIA, a fixed index annuity. People don't realize they go, oh, well, in the first year, my rate was this. And I'm like, yeah. And then what they'll do is they will, those caps drop over time if the economy is not good, right? I mean, when I was in that game, I remember at one point cap rates were 8%. So I had clients making 7 a year. That's fantastic in annuity. By the end, some of these rates were down to 3.5, 4%, right? And it's like because an insurance carrier cannot give people 7, 8% returns guaranteed
Right.
because they would go bankrupt. So they
Right.
have to game the system at the end to squeeze the nickels out, right? And people don't understand that or understand how their income rider works, right? Things of that nature. So the number one thing I'd say to people is you gotta just spend a little bit of time, right? Spend more time than you do booking your vacation for the year on your retirement. And I'm knowledgeable. I'm not just a guy who shills stuff. Hey, this is the world I live in, but I understand stocks, I understand annuities, I understand things of that nature, and we're more than happy to sit down. Obviously, at the end of the day, we're going to say this is why we're good and you should work with us. But at least if they say no thanks, at least they're educated on what they have,
Right.
right?
So it seems, if I'm hearing this correctly, one thing that they can do if they feel stuck in a basic retirement plan is look at what they're invested in and
Right.
what their worst. I think you said the worst 10% is.
Yep.
In marketing, I've learned over the years, you learn to do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
Right.
So if you go in and you find out, look, I've got this amount of money, this percentage of my portfolio is really underperforming. If
Yep.
you're able to move that money within your retirement investment bubble to
Yep.
something that performs better,
Absolutely.
then that's one thing you can really do. And I know years and years ago, my wife started getting into this. Uh, do investments still have Lipper ratings?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
So
one of the
that's
places.
you
Yeah.
find out people find out what the Lipper rating is, which I
Yep.
believe is a letter. A is the best, and
Yeah.
the further down the
Yeah.
alphabet you get, the worse it is. So start looking at just look up the Lipper rating of what you're invested in. If you
Right.
have some E's down there, then maybe move them up to some C's. Do yourself a favor.
Well, I mean, I think you can go to I think morningstar.com and you can go on there and you can type in any symbol for any mutual fund and it'll give you all the information you need. People don't understand the term beta, right? The further out on beta on a mutual fund means the more volatility it has. Now, volatility doesn't always mean bad. It means that when things go well, it goes really well, and when things go bad, it goes real. It's like the end of the tail, right? It's going to whip the most. If you're looking for just a basic kind of bland situation, you want to find something that's kind of more, I always say at the beginning, towards the grip of the whip because it doesn't move as much. You're not going to make as much, but it's also not going to fluctuate. These are things that easily, and I took my kids when they were in middle school and had them get on there, and they within 10 minutes they understood what they were looking for. Right? It's not hard to
Right.
decipher. The thing is, these financial advisors always try to make it so difficult with all their mumbo jumbo because they don't want you to understand what's going on, right?
Right.
Is they want to make it seem like it's this big confusing place. And I always tell people, look, and I've seen stuff on this all place. If you just wanted to be the most basic retirement plan, just put your money in the S&P. I mean, go look at what it does every year. It's pretty basic. You're getting
Yeah.
a ton of different companies, and it's been around for almost 100 years, maybe more than 100 years now. And it's really been just a litmus test of business, and you'll be fine. It's boring, but you'll be fine, right?
So if anybody out there, listeners, are intrigued by all of this and want to improve on their retirement plan or what they're doing and get into some of these alternatives, how can they reach out to you and how do you help folks? You've described some of it, but
Yeah, the we have several different websites, so I'll try to keep it easy. The easiest way to reach me is through a website called Life Advisor Solution, all singular, lifeadvisorsolution.com. I can be reached at ben@lifeadvisorsolution.com. It really depends on where they're at because different states have different regulations. I'll just keep it this simple. If you're in California, there are different rules than out of California, really. So we have different ways that you can invest in life settlements. There are funds that you can get into. You can buy whole policies. It just depends on what you want to do, right? So, and rather than me saying, hey, go to this company's website, which I work with, or this one, we'd really want to have that first conversation about, again, what's your worst 10%, understanding what's out there and how you can deal with it, the good and the bad and the ugly. I'm not one of these guys who just tells you, hey, you're going to make all this money, but it's also here's could be the objections area. Let's get through that. And if you're happy with that, then we can go shopping for you and tell you what you can do. But that's the easiest way. Yeah. Life Advisor Solution. It's more of an agent based area, but it is the easiest way to reach me. And through there, I can, we have a website that has all the regular policies that we can send you.
Mhm.
And then we also have different funds depending on what state you are in. Okay.
All right, great. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Ben. I know I learned something. Certainly the other end of life settlements
Right.
that people don't know about. Certainly worth looking into. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yes. Thank you, Steve, so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.